Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. We are now officially 1 week away from Election Day, and already more than 223,000 New Yorkers have cast their ballots as part of early voting. Polls will remain open through Sunday and then again on Tuesday, November 4th. Meanwhile, there was some family drama on the campaign trail today after mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo nabbed former Governor David Paterson's endorsement. The Republican candidate, Curtis Lewa, said he never wanted support from Paterson, who is his ex-wife's new husband, calling his backing the, quote, kiss of death. This all comes as Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani hit the streets with potential voters in Hell's Kitchen. That's where we find our State House reporter, Bernadette Hogan. She is on the campaign trail with tonight's top story. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. So behind me, just a couple of minutes ago, Zohran Mamdani was here with a bunch of supporters, canvassers, urging them to continue to pound the pavement, knock on doors, and try to get as many people as they possibly can to the polls because he doesn't want to take any chances. Now, as you mentioned, early voting continues over the next couple of days. The polls actually close tonight at 8 o'clock, and the other candidates are also saying that they think that the early voting totals so far are in their favor.
I propose that next mayor is standing right next to me.
Former Governor David Paterson is giving his blessing to mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo.
We need somebody who can come in and reorganize and give our children the education they deserve and put people in this city who can't afford it into decent and affordable housing. No one's going to get a free ride, no matter what some people are promising.
His third endorsement in the race, and second for Cuomo, after Paterson backed his failed Democratic primary bid. The former governor then supported Mayor Eric Adams, who now is not running for re-election and is also siding with Cuomo.
The Democratic Party is having a civil war. You don't hear it, you don't see it, but it's going on in this election. And there's two sides that are fighting. You have a far-left extremist group that are called themselves socialists. Socialism hasn't worked anywhere.
Cuomo became governor after Paterson in 2011, but the pair's political history goes back to the early 2000s, and it wasn't always amicable. In the past, Paterson accused Cuomo of attempting to sabotage his political career. And then New York State Attorney General Andrew Cuomo investigated Paterson's gubernatorial administration for misconduct.
When it comes to a big issue, and when we have to come together, nobody comes together like family, and we are the Democratic family.
Speaking of family,
of all the endorsements that Governor Paterson have made, my husband-in-law, he's the stepfather of my oldest son, Anthony.
Sliwa's ex-wife is Mary Paterson.
David Paterson, do me a favor. You are the political kiss of death. Do not endorse me, because if somehow you did, I would throw that endorsement right back at you.
Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani hit up voters in Hell's Kitchen and explained he's not worried about the early voting numbers, despite his campaign sending out an email Monday arguing the 55 and over totals so far could favor Andrew Cuomo.
We're not worried. We just do not want to let our confidence become complacency. We know that there is an election to win. No matter what the polls say, no matter what the odds say, every single day is an opportunity for us to make this case to New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs.
When asked about the housing ballot proposals, Mamdani still refused to take a position.
I've yet to take a position on the ballot referendum, but I will be sharing that as soon as I do, and I'll be voting on Election Day.
And just going back to those housing ballot proposals, Mamdani has continued to refuse to take a position, including on New York One's debate stage. And perhaps part of the reason is because he has intense pressure from the city council, allies in the city council, who oppose those ballot measures. However, those that support it say that it would probably cut bureaucratic red tape when it comes to trying to build more housing units. Errol?
So now, Bernadette, that stuff going on there in Hell's Kitchen, was that simply a campaign event, or was he part of something else that was already going on?
It was a campaign event. It was Mamdani joined by supporters and two elected officials, Councilman Eric Botcher and State Assemblyman Tony Simone, who represent this area. And, you know, it was also a Democratic club that's here locally. And basically, he wanted to deploy people and kind of keep up the momentum. Again, this is a message that we heard from Mamdani in the final days of the June primary. But over the past couple of days now that we have some early returns from the early voting totals, it seems like he is not trying to take anything for granted. I mean, he used this quote where he said in the past 2 days, he doesn't want to wake up like Andrew Cuomo did on primary, the day after the primary, where he thought that he was the winner and he ended up getting beat.
Okay, many twists and turns ahead. Thanks very much, Bernadette. Also tonight, a new lawsuit may thrust New York into the congressional redistricting wars. Red and blue states have been redrawing House maps in the middle of the decade ahead of a contentious midterm election next year. The latest lawsuit challenges the lines of a Staten Island-based congressional district that is currently represented by Republican Nicole Malliotakis. Our Dan Rivley joins me now with more details on that. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Errol. For years, Democrats have wanted this seat. It is the last Republican seat in the entire city, but they've barely been able to win it, barely been able to hold on to it. Republicans typically win that district. Well, if Democrats can't beat them at the ballot box, a Democratic attorney in Washington, D.C. is filing a lawsuit hoping to make that district much, much more Democratic. New York once spoke with Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis. She said that the lawsuit is simply frivolous.
The reason why Democrats don't win in this district is because their policies are awful and the people of Staten Island, Southern Brooklyn are just tired of one-party Democrat rule.
Nicole Malliotakis of Staten Island is the only Republican member of Congress in New York City. Her district, number 11, covers Staten Island and Southern Brooklyn. It's competitive, but Democrats usually lose, never able to hold the seat for longer than a single term in recent years. Now a lawsuit from Mark Elias, a Washington, D.C. Democratic attorney who handles election litigation, seeks to change that by forcing Staten Island to be in the same House district as Lower Manhattan, loading it with many, many more Democrats.
They have to try to tilt the scale, to change the rules, to redraw the maps, to give themselves a political advantage.
The legal rationale for the redistricting? It dilutes Black and Latino voter strength in CD11, and that these voters are routinely and systematically unable to influence elections for their representative of choice, thus violating the state constitution. Malliotakis took umbrage. She's Hispanic. Her mom is Cuban.
We know that we gained a lot of support from the Hispanic community, and that is why I am the first Hispanic elected to represent this community.
Today, Democrat Dan Goldman represents Lower Manhattan in a district that also covers parts of Brooklyn. Goldman, who lives in Battery Park City, put out a statement ready to stand as a candidate. If Staten Island is drawn into my district, then I will be ready to step up and take the fight for democracy and a Democratic House majority to Nicole Malliotakis' doorstep. Breaking Republicans' bulwark in the city has been an enticing goal for Democrats. A recent New York House map struck down as an unconstitutional gerrymander tried to link Staten Island to Park Slope, the quintessential progressive neighborhood in Brooklyn. Governor Kathy Hochul has been itching to join the redistricting wars soon after Texas made its move to redraw lines to elect more Republicans.
I'm exploring with our leaders every option to redraw our state congressional lines as soon as possible.
Now, the problem with that is state law and the Constitution may prevent New York Democrats from doing this mid-decade redistricting, at least for 2026. It might have happen to take place later on. But if this lawsuit is successful, it would require not just the redrawing of the congressional district on Staten Island. It could change the whole map in New York. Now, this lawsuit was brought on behalf of 4 voters, 2 men who live on Staten Island, 1 Black and 1 Latino, and 2 women who live in Lower Manhattan, 1 Latina and 1 white woman. Errol.
So, yeah, that last point is actually important. You can't just sort of change this around. It would have a chain reaction that could really spread throughout the entire state.
That's right. So if you put Staten Island with Lower Manhattan, opens up South Brooklyn, you got to put that somewhere. And it also just gives them an opportunity, right? Because, hey, while you're redrawing one district, why not redraw some others? And that was what
Democrats in New York had wanted to do. They wanted this big partisan gerrymandering map. It got struck down. So they kind of had to just tweak around the edges. This would give them another opportunity, maybe tweak a little bit more than just the edges.
Okay, thanks very much, Stan. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, the city's next mayor will be in charge of nearly 1,000 public school students, 1 million public school students, rather. We'll tell you where each candidate stands on the issue of education. Also tonight, I'll talk about the role of Latino voters in the race for mayor with former City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. One of the greatest responsibilities that the next mayor will have is to run the city's public schools. Although at least one of the 3 candidates running says he is not in favor of mayoral control of schools. New York One education reporter Jillian Jorgensen joins me now with a look at where the candidates stand. Good evening, Jill.
Good evening, Errol. And this is one of the ways that city government most closely touches the lives of New Yorkers is through the running of the public schools. And here's a little bit about where those candidates stand on those issues.
One of these men will run New York City's public school system. Or maybe not. Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani says he's not a supporter of mayoral control of city schools.
I've shared my criticisms of mayoral control, and what I'm looking to do and ensure is that we create a system where there is greater parental involvement, greater educator involvement, student involvement.
Mamdani has the backing of the teachers union, which holds a similar opinion on mayoral control. So his position is perhaps not unexpected, but it can be a little confusing.
You said you're still for mayoral accountability for educational outcomes. This has confused some people about how you can give up final authority but still hold yourself accountable. Can you try to clarify that?
I remain opposed to mayoral control, and I also believe that the mayor is accountable for that which happens in this city. I will not shirk that accountability.
Independent candidate and former Governor Andrew Cuomo says ending mayoral control would be a
debacle.
Mamdani has also proposed phasing out gifted and talented programs that begin at kindergarten, though he said he would keep a 3rd grade on-ramp to the program. Both Cuomo and Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa say they'd expand the program.
I would double the gifted and talented programs, double the number of specialized high schools, keep the SAT, and keep mayoral control.
Both of my sons failed to get into gifted and talented. They've done quite well, thankfully, in the public school system. But I would not only maintain gifted and talented because I saw it up close and personal, I would expand it.
Sliwa, meanwhile, has said he'd aim to cut $10 billion from the Education Department's budget. But he also wants to hire more therapists, expand athletic programs, increase teacher pay, and build new vocational schools. He says the cuts can come from the top.
You have a bureaucracy at the Tweed Courthouse. Perfect place to house the Department of Education because of the corruption in the top ranks.
The next mayor will oversee a system that must finish implementing a state law capping class sizes. Mamdani recently rolled out a plan alongside union leaders to boost teacher recruitment and help comply with the law. Cuomo, meanwhile, has said the state should pay for it.
The problem with the class size law, it's a nice idea. The state didn't send the money. The state has not been doing its fair share for the city.
The new class size limits are being phased in over 5 years and must be in place in all classrooms by September of 2028.
And so many major issues facing the next mayor when it comes to schools. Some school bus contracts also coming up for renewal that will be on the next mayor's plate potentially. So a lot to look at here, Errol, as we head into Election Day.
I'm just as confused as I was sitting there at the debate. Mamdani says that he has a critique of mayoral control. He says it's not necessary, but that the mayor should be in charge of everything that goes on in the school system.
Yeah, and I think this is a line that we've heard a lot from critics of mayoral control, particularly the teachers union. I don't think it's surprising that they don't love mayoral control at this point. You know, they're a union. They're not going to get along with the management a lot of the time, even when they're backing someone to be the manager, right? But I do think that the general feeling we get from a lot of the folks who have complaints about mayoral control is that let's find another way, some kind of reformed version of it. I don't think there's a lot of appetite to go back to a pure school board system, because then you're letting, 31 school boards plus potentially make different decisions about policies all around the city. I don't think that Mamdani or anybody in the race really has an appetite for that. So it really remains to be seen what they would actually do, what Mamdani would actually do.
There's a lot of talk, as there is whenever this subject comes up, about all of the so-called educrats, the people who work at the central office at Tweed. But cutting that bureaucracy is easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also don't think there's quite as much bureaucracy as people think there is in terms of like money in the budget, you know, and we did see cuts and shakeups and reorganization of Tweed under David Banks. When he came in as chancellor under Mayor Adams, they got rid of a middle layer of the executive superintendents. He gave more power directly to superintendents. He did cut a lot of that middle management at Tweed. The education department still has a massive budget. It's a really big school system with a lot of people working for it.
Okay, thanks very much, Jill. In the run-up to Election Day, we've also been looking at the attitudes of voters in different neighborhoods around the city. Today, we're taking you to Jackson Heights, Queens, where residents and local officials say that they are facing a range of quality of life issues they want the next mayor to address. Our Kelly Mena spent some time in the neighborhood and joins us now with a closer look. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Errol. And Jackson Heights did not disappoint. It's a very diverse community with many diverse opinions on what the issues are and what they're hoping the next mayor will be able to address.
Jackson Heights is one of the most diverse immigrant communities on the planet.
In Jackson Heights, you can find many things. Food from all over the world, street vendors selling special goods, but you can't find many parks.
We have the least amount of green space in all of New York City.
Councilman Shaker Krishnan wants to turn a new leaf on the area's lack of public space. The neighborhood has one park and 1.3-mile stretch of open streets, but that's not enough. Krishnan, along with local residents, are fighting to save a plot of land next to the local Episcopal church. Citing financial issues, the church is looking to sell the plot to a private developer. But the councilman has an offer of his own.
The idea that we proposed is the Parks Department should buy the play yard, turn it into a small public park, and that way we protect and preserve the green space. And it also provides the church with revenue that they can use to sustain their operations.
With the new mayoral administration on the horizon, Krishnan is hopeful the park situation will improve. Off Roosevelt Avenue, there is a different type of fight happening.
Well, we have had closed down for one day, and you can see on 82nd right now, these brothels are open.
Rosa Sanchez is the president of Restore Roosevelt Avenue. The local group formed a year ago amid growing concerns over prostitution. Last October, Mayor Adams launched a specialized task force to address the issue. A year later, City Hall says major crime has dropped nearly 35%. Sanchez says the key to the issue is helping the women.
And these women, I know they have families, and they should be having a helping hand from our local officials here, where they should be giving them training for programs. Unfortunately, they have not.
On Friday afternoon, New York One witnessed multiple women on the avenue working. Sanchez and her group are completely against the decriminalization of prostitution.
We have family values and know that education is really important for us. And legalizing prostitution is a no-no for our community, and we are not going to tolerate it.
From the sights and sound of the area to the food. On the corner of 73rd Street and 37th Avenue, you will find a small yellow food truck. Inside is where the city's premier Bangladeshi street food is made.
In my guards, I thought, somebody has to open the door for Bangladeshi food.
Naeem Kandagher started with one truck back at the end of 2017 and has now grown to 9, including a couple of restaurants. He says a major issue is the lack of new licenses that has forced new vendors like him to the black market.
City give permit for, I think, $200 or $260, but people charge for this permit $20,000, $18,000. I think it's a hassle.
The federal immigration crackdown in the city is affecting his business, with customers too afraid to buy food.
If it is $100, I would sell before. Now it's not even $10, just because of ICE.
And currently, there is an effort by the City Council to increase the number of vendor licenses so people like Naeem can get an actual license from the city, Errol.
These are some of the issues that come up year after year after year. Same neighborhood, same issues. Are they looking to the candidates for mayor to maybe make a breakthrough so that we don't have the same conversation 4 years from now?
Definitely. And I think for the city councilman, Shaker Krishnan especially, he's been talking to Mamdani about how they need to invest in public parks there. He himself is getting involved, especially with that plot of land by the church. They're already moving kind of the wheels at the city council level so that once the city is in a position to buy it, the process can happen quickly.
Okay, thanks very much, Kelly. We are going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll take you out to Jamaica, Queens to see what residents think of the Jamaica rezoning plan ahead of tomorrow's city council vote. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Tomorrow, the full city council is expected to vote on a massive rezoning plan that would affect 300 blocks in Jamaica, Queens. If the measure passes, it would take effect almost immediately, with Mayor Adams having 5 days to either review and accept or veto the plan. However, we expect the administration to support it because the neighborhood plan is backed by the city's planning department. New York One's Noralyn Kawaja spoke with residents on both sides of the rezoning plan and has more in this report.
We're going! We're going! We're going!
The faithful have been spreading the gospel at Community Church of Christ in Jamaica for 70 years. Like many faith-based organizations rooted in community service, like this food pantry.
And we're putting 2 green peppers.
Outreach pastor Latricia Davis, born and raised in Jamaica.
Jamaica, Queens has come a long way from the time that I was born.
She says she's watched new and better buildings go up, offering different kinds of housing to residents. And she says she's praying for more from the city's rezoning plan.
It's because of the promise to bring affordable housing to our communities, and also to create and provide more opportunities for people to become employed.
The Department of City Planning's rezoning plan covers 230 blocks and touts the creation of 12,000 new homes, including around 4,000 affordable units, boosting commercial space for businesses, upgrades to transit, streets, sidewalks, and 2 new plazas in downtown Jamaica. This rezoning plan would increase the density of new buildings permitted in residential and commercial space, which generally would allow for taller construction.
Investment, long overdue. We are making it here with this plan. We're making investment in parks, streetscape improvements, sewer infrastructure, and of course, creating opportunities for affordable homes in a central part of the city which desperately needs it.
It's definitely heartbreaking. Nafisa Mahmood co-founded Jamaica Campaign Against Rezoning Expansion, or JCARE. She's worried the rezoning will push Black and brown residents out of the neighborhood because of gentrification.
The proposed rezoning plan promises new housing, but we know that the vast majority of the housing will not be affordable for working class families, and in many cases, middle class families. So the people here are looking at the real risk of displacement.
Over the past decade, the average rent in Jamaica rose from $1,681 to $2,737, an increase of 63%, according to Miller Samuel Real Estate Appraisers.
How we doing, ladies? We good?
Churchgoers say demand at this food pantry has increased over the last several years, and now middle-class families are among those seeking assistance. But they hope the rezoning actually helps those living paycheck to paycheck find new affordable housing and better jobs.
If one family is able to afford housing based on this rezoning, then, I'm good with that.
Noralyn Kawaja, New York One.
On a related note, tomorrow the full city council will also vote on another rezoning plan slated for Long Island City. That plan, if approved, would create 15,000 new housing units in that neighborhood. I'm going to talk it over tomorrow night with Queen City Council member Julie Wan. I'll be taking a break now, and when we come back, I'll speak with former City Council Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito about the Latino vote in the race for mayor and much more. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Just a couple of months ago, back in June, Zoran Mamdani defeated Andrew Cuomo in a primary contest to secure the Democratic nomination for mayor. Mamdani did so with the help of a plurality of Asian voters, college graduates, and renters. He also had the backing of a large proportion of Hispanic voters. Mamdani's victory challenges the notion that Latino voters were more likely to support former Governor Andrew Cuomo and that the Latino electorate is trending more conservative after President Trump made some inroads in that community last year. As it stands now, a majority of Latino voters seem to be supporting Mamdani, but will those votes remain the same by the time we count the votes a week from tonight? Joining me now to talk about that and much more is Melissa Mark Viverito. She is president of the Hamilton Campaign Network and a former city council speaker. Welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Errol. Thank you.
So I'm referring to a poll that has Zohran Mamdani with actually 48% support among Latino voters in New York, compared with 24% for Andrew Cuomo and about 14% for Curtis Sliwa. What do you think accounts for those numbers?
Look, it's all about the messaging. It's all about the platform. It is about what the policy ideas are, the vision, and how that's being relayed and communicated to the voters. And that's resonating. The poll indicates that clearly the issues that Zohran has highlighted as his platform are ones that resonate, right? In this poll of Hispanic Federation that you talked about, housing is number one. Safety is up there as well. So those issues that really have resonated are ones that he's been outlining in his platform. So I think that really is an example of being very focused and really being in tune with what the challenges and the needs are, and not necessarily responding to what your donors may be wanting you to highlight.
And I noticed that Representatives Nydia Velázquez and Adriano Espaillat are supporting Mamdani. Does that have an effect on clubs, on officials, the general public? What does that do for him?
There's some that plays to some effect, right? You have high profile, very visible leaders in both Adriano's chair of the Hispanic caucus in Congress, Nydia, who's a longstanding stalwart in our community. That comes with some. So seeing that leadership also endorsed and supported, I think it does play into the mindset and into the psyche also of voters. And maybe it doesn't have an overwhelming, but it does bear weight. And I think that's important to note. So I know that here, for instance, in East Harlem, in El Barrio, where I have been knocking on doors and I've been talking to voters, that is, in terms of what the poll is highlighting, it is what I'm also seeing when I'm talking to my neighbors. And it's very exciting. I mean, the level of enthusiasm and energy in terms of people's involvement in voting for Zohran is really, really exciting.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to put up a map of some of the turnout numbers that we've seen so far, early voting up in the Bronx. And we know these are early numbers. It's pretty, but it's pretty low. These are 5 assembly districts that in neighborhoods that strongly went for Cuomo in the primary. The numbers seem to be pretty low, though, I guess, in these first 3 days. Is that meaningful at this point, or is it too early to say?
No, I mean, if you look at the turnout, when you talk and reflect on 4 years ago, every area of this city has seen an exponential growth in the turnout. Of course, we have lower voter participation in some areas, and that's unfortunate, right? But I think what is being demonstrated is the level of energy and enthusiasm that is moving people to vote at rates that we did not see 4 years ago. So that, to me, is really indicative of the success of the messaging of this campaign. I'm going to assume and feel very comfortable, I believe, that a lot of that energy and growth in vote that we're seeing is in response and positive response to Mamdani's campaign and his message. He has been going to every corner of the city, meeting with stakeholders, talking to anybody who's willing to sit with him. I am very excited, and it resonates with me now as a constituent and as a resident here in New York City and as a voter who also has progressive policies. I want to see him succeed. I believe his agenda is one that we can work collectively. He is building that spirit of collaboration within the city of New York, that we have to look out for each other, that we have to reevaluate our priorities, and that now with the threat of Trump, that we have to even close the ranks and work all the more closely together in the best interest of New York City and in the best interest of the majority of this city, which is working class people. So that to me is exciting. And so we have a lot of work ahead. And I say we because as a city, we're collective. We all have a lot of work to do in these next years.
Well, yeah, and I'm really struck by the fact that 49% of Latino voters, 41% of black voters seem to be behind Mamdani, and roughly the same level of support among white liberals. It looks like sort of a governing coalition. Frankly, it reminds me of the David Dinkins coalition from the 80s, coming together to try and lead the city. What would be your advice, because you have walked this path yourself? Some of my viewers may not realize you were a labor organizer before you got elected. As he goes from, as he tries to go from being a messenger to being a manager, what advice would you give to Zohran Mamdani?
Look, I think it's one that's just probably one he's heard many times, right? About surrounding yourself with the right people, the people that are really focused and laser focused on that agenda, people who are experienced and know how to navigate these waters, but that also outside of the box thinkers, right? We don't want a situation where we're kind of resorting to the same old tactics and strategies. We are dealing with a scenario in this country where everything is brand new. We cannot even be thinking of utilizing existing playbooks. We have to be thinking extremely creatively outside of the box, and we have to restructure our priorities. I completely agree with that. Our budgets reflect the priorities of this city. The vision that Zohran has laid out is one that is in the best interest of this city, and that we all have an interest in helping him succeed. I know there are those who probably don't want him to succeed, but I am committed, and others are committed to making his agenda successful in this city. So it is about surrounding yourself with those people that are deeply committed, and finding partners along the way that are going to be that laser focused as well. We have, when he comes into office, you have already a state budget that has to be passed. You have a city budget process that is beginning. There is a lot of hard work ahead. And so I know that he is going to give his all to make it successful.
Okay. In our last minute, you're one of the few people who has had a successful race to become city council speaker. It's not the general public that weighs in. It's the other 50 members of the city council. That race is already underway. I'm sure you're better connected to the gossip than I am. What should a future speaker be doing at this stage of the game?
Look, this race has been going on for years. I know that in my case, when I jumped in, I was we were in a different place, right? By this time, we were pretty much done with the campaign, to be honest. We had secured pretty much the votes. So at this point, you want someone who's going to be at least on the side of the admin, right? You do want someone who is going to be an ally and as reflective, right, of the needs of New Yorkers. And so I think this race is well on its way. I know I keep hearing maybe 2 or 3 or 4 names out there, but I will say, in terms of the progressives, when I ran, there was pretty much closing ranks, right? There is several candidates who fall into that line. I think there has to be a consolidation, and that has to happen pretty quickly.
Okay, we will be watching. Thanks so much for spending some time with us, Melissa Mark Viverito.
Thank you.
Okay, let's take a break now. When we come back, the government shutdown's effects are now being felt in the skies. We'll bring you the details in 2 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The government shutdown, now on day 28, is starting to impact air travel. Staffing shortages at some airports around the country caused flight delays and cancellations over the weekend. The FAA says that too few air traffic controllers were the cause of takeoff and arrival disruptions on Sunday at Newark International Airport and Teterboro Airport, both in New Jersey. New York One Transit reporter Samantha Liebman filed this report from LaGuardia Airport.
Air traffic controllers are at work without a paycheck due to the government shutdown. Joe Segreto is a controller helping to manage the airspace for the city's airports. He says he's going to have to make some sacrifices.
You have certain things in life, right? Like your mortgage is number one. You don't want to start defaulting on your mortgage. Feeding your children, feeding yourself. Those are big things. Paying for gas to get to work.
He says morale is down and staffing is an issue. National Air Traffic Controllers Association members handed out pamphlets Tuesday to travelers at LaGuardia Airport, warning of the implications of the government shutdown on an already burdened system.
We asked them to go in and do one of the most stressful jobs in the world already. They already do it 6 days a week, understaffed. There were 3,800 certified controllers short right now. And then we said, figure out how to do it without pay is completely unacceptable.
They were joined by Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy calling for an end to the shutdown. Duffy says it will also affect the pipeline of controllers in the academy who will lose their small stipend soon while instructors aren't being paid at all. He says new graduates may be hit the worst.
But we have a lot of new controllers who are still in training that aren't at a high level in income, and they can't handle what's happening to them today. Those are the very people who have now looked for side jobs. You've heard the stories of controllers working at an Uber or a DoorDash.
Duffy says Sunday, nationally, 44% of delays were due to staffing, requiring airports to limit flights. Monday, it was 24%. Travelers at LaGuardia say so far, so good.
Thank God nothing's happened so far, but delays, and I know a lot of people have been delayed.
Are you worried about safety in the air because they may be short-staffed?
Yes, we are. So we got here early, and we actually had rented a car ahead of time just in case there was a problem.
Duffy says safety is not an issue.
It's safe because we have great men and women who run our facilities.
Now, Secretary Duffy says New York, which has the busiest airspace, hasn't suffered from as many delays as other areas of the country, but he says it could get worse if the government shutdown continues. At LaGuardia Airport, Samantha Liebman, New York 1.
It is time for a break. Coming up, millions of New Yorkers are bracing for an interruption of food assistance benefits as the government shutdown continues. I'm going to talk about that and other federal aid cuts to our city with the director of the city's independent budget office. Stay with us. Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Earlier today, New York and more than 24 other states sued the Trump administration for refusing to fund the federal food assistance program during the government shutdown. This coming Saturday, the city's 1.8 million households that rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP for short, will not receive benefits to put food on the table. That's just one of the many changes that New Yorkers are bracing for under the Trump administration. The city's independent budget office is highlighting the impact of federal funding cuts through a series of new reports that includes research on how cuts will hurt health and hospitals, public housing, and even the Department of Education. Joining me now to talk through the implications is Louisa Chafee, the director of the city's independent budget office. Welcome to the program. Very good to see you.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
This is a part of government some of my viewers are not familiar with, but you are truly independent. The mayor can't fire you. The council can't cut your budget. You were just there to provide the kind of research we're going to talk about tonight.
Exactly. IBO was voted into existence in 1989, and we are, as it says, an independent city government agency.
Okay. You've looked at SNAP. Let's, I guess, start with that because the deadline is coming up. And it sounds like it follows a theme that goes through some of your other reports, which is that the federal government is reducing its role and trying to shift the burden onto the states. That doesn't necessarily mean things will be cut here in the city, but it puts a lot of budget pressure on the system as a whole. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yes. So the point of our reports was to really highlight the federal changes, both from the OBBB, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, as well as numerous other federal actions. We started writing these reports in September, long before the shutdown came to pass. But what is occurring right now with the threatened SNAP shutdown is on top of multiple other threats. And so what we see from the IBO perspective is New York families, New York households, and New Yorkers really facing federal fiscal changes in numerous areas. And our objective was to highlight what is underway and what might occur.
So even aside from whether or not there'll be an interruption in benefits, say this week, it says in your report that administrative costs to process applications, screen for eligibility, and distribute benefits. And this is food stamps. This is a core entitlement that's been around for decades. But starting next year, the federal government's only going to pay 25% of the cost, and that's going to shift more of that to New York City.
Yes. So the SNAP program is a really brilliant program because it's very low bureaucracy. It puts money onto a card to eligible individuals and their families, and they spend it at local shops. And so what we think is important to understand is that 1.8 million New Yorkers qualify. They spent about $5 billion last year in New York City at about 8,000 businesses, which means that as their SNAP spending goes down, not only do these households face really increased hunger, we also have a whole reaction within the economy and the businesses no longer receiving money. In fact, USDA puts forward data that each dollar spent results in $1.54 in the economy. And so that's a change that we thought was important to highlight.
Sure, there'll be a chain reaction. Let me shift to one of the other things that you looked at. There'll be a growth in the uninsured population that you are projecting as a result of the new legislation. It's going to be harder to get some of the subsidies. People enrolled in Medicaid will likely decrease because they're going to put some work requirements on it that will naturally lead to some people dropping out of the program. I guess that's the intended effect. Up to 1.3 million people across New York State is the projection that could become uninsured.
Yes, so the challenge is that there are, as you know, Errol, numerous things happening at the same time. And so what we tried to highlight was just within the public hospital system, health and hospitals, and if you'll bear with me, recognizing it's the largest public system in the country. It employs 43,000 people. There are over 1 million patients. Its ratio of serving Medicaid and those who are uninsured is much higher than our private hospitals. And the pressure that the federal government is exerting will shift its H&H's current fiscal. So right now they're balanced budget at about $13.5 billion. With 2 weeks cash on hand, which is very short. And what we're concerned about is that the federal regulations will make it that much harder to qualify, causing more uninsured people to be in the system, which will have ripple effects throughout, both for the hospitals, because they still provide care, but they're going to have to find savings other way. It'll put pressure on government. And we do need to recognize here that Governor Hochul has stepped up and thought about various ways that the state government can appropriately make sure as many New Yorkers as possible stay insured. I
know you haven't been through too many of these transitions, but where does that leave you as far as providing advice to the government at a time when, it'll all be resolved next week, but right now we have a mayor who's on his way out, we have a council that's on its way in, it's not clear who's supposed to take this report from you and run with it as far as getting New York City prepared for what's likely to come.
Well, that's why I'm here on New York One.
Oh, there you go.
Our job is to put information out to the public. We're proud to work with anyone who asks us, and we are enthusiastically illuminating New York City's budget and policy.
Yes, actually, that's an important thing to remind viewers. Anybody can call the Independent Budget Office.
Absolutely.
If you have a research question that involves the budget, how will this affect my neighborhood, my group, the organizations that I care about, and they'll help you try and figure it out. Public housing is one of the areas where you're projecting some kind of an impact. What's likely to happen there?
So the challenge for NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority, is that it is about over 70% federally funded. Now, there have been proposals to shift how the NYCHA funding flows through the federal government. And until now, none of those have actually come to pass. But we chose to highlight it because over 500,000 New Yorkers live in NYCHA, and it is central to stability in housing for many lower income households. And if one imagines the compounding effect of one's medical care being adjusted or downwardly shifted, one's housing being threatened, one's education being threatened, one's ability to receive other benefits, we really tried to highlight that these different policy areas are all interrelated and are all affecting us as New Yorkers.
And in our last minute, I don't want to forget about the Department of Education, which, while it has a huge budget and has funds flowing in from a lot of different sources, you have pointed out that federal grants that directly come to the Department of Education for a Head Start and the Magnet School Assistance Program could be threatened at this point.
Yes. So the Head Start program goes through regular procurements. It happened to be the cycle this year. And the New York City Department of Education received less awards than in the past. But it appears, and we're still investigating, that there were many other nonprofits that are independently awarded through the federal government. So that may just be a regular procurement process. The magnet schools is different. It's a long story. It has to do with the New York City Department of Education being given 1 day to fill a report. They didn't manage to do it in a single day. And they're now pushing back on the federal government because of that funding stream.
Okay. We are going to continue to watch all of this as we get further into the next budget year, which in Albany will start in January, and the city will be following right behind. Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with you.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.